All right, today what we're going to talk about is this layering method in watercolor or color pencil and what to do next. So right now on this piece, I have my first layer of watercolor. I'm almost done with it. It's applied very lightly, and I've kind of just basically blocked in the areas with the different base color that I want. So what's next? What next is to add more layers of color through this transparent layering. But when I do this, I want to add shadows for volume and contrast. So here I have a watercolor piece. And what I want you to see about this, it has many more layers of watercolor on it. But when we have overlapping areas, now hopefully you can see that there's a shadow behind the one petal because this is in front. So that creates depth right there, but it also creates kind of more of this three-dimensional space, and it creates contrast. So contrast is a difference in values. So let's look at another place where there are some shadows added. There's a shadow added right under here. There is some shading around the bird body to make it appear more three-dimensional. And this is kind of doing the same thing here. Some darker values are added to make it look like there's a shadow and that it's three-dimensional. So the concept that we need to work with is complementary colors. So again, whether you're using watercolor or color pencil, we're going to use the complementary color to help add that shadow. So what's a complement? Well, according to this color wheel, complement is showing two arrows in opposite directions. So they are colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel. So even if you haven't done a big study on the color wheel yet, you should be able to just look at a color and look directly across on the color wheel. This is the little bit tricky part, I would say, is that when you have a color, let's say these color pencils here, and I'm looking at these and I'm trying to find the opposite of, let's say, brown. Brown is not on the color wheel out here, but I can find brown if I look and find a shade of orange. So I have brown there, then I go to the opposite and I'm going to find blue. So this is going to be a new skill. It's going to be something that you're going to want to refer to the color wheel to find the opposite, but it's going to work out great. So how do you do this on your project? Well, here's a color pencil piece. You're going to watch a video about adding shadows, realistic shadows, but it does continue to do this light layering. Now, one thing I can look at is I can see that this branch is on top of this branch. So yes, I can simply just make the branch underneath darker, and that's going to create a shadow. But the other skill I want you to learn is how to create a darker value that's more realistic by mixing in the complementary color. So I'm just going to start there. Now, a shadow is darkest right next to the object that is overlapping it, and then it fades as it gets farther away. So there's a transition. Dark when it's right next to the branch that's on top, and then lighter, transition away. So that was one way to create a shadow. But one thing I do want you to try is to mix in the opposite color. So as I was looking at the color wheel and I found that brown, and I look across, I find blue, I think I'm going to try to work with this darker blue rather than the lighter blue that I have in my set. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. And now I don't want to turn the branch blue. I just want to create a darker version of brown. So I'm going to start really lightly layering that blue and then pulling it away. But I'm not done. I'm going to sandwich it into another layer of that brown. So this is a way to kind of expand your color set. I want you to look at the difference between how dark this is and how dark that is. So I didn't add black into it, I added the complement. So this is a way, though, I was saying, to expand your color pencil set from just the 12 or 24 you may have that came in the box. So by mixing colors together, colors that aren't right next to each other on the color wheel, but in fact are opposites, you can create some more sophisticated colors. So you can do this also with watercolor. So as I look at my watercolor, I have the same thing going on with the branches. What I would do here, this is not quite as much of a brown, it's more of like a yellowy brown. What I would do is I would take a violet color. So as I take a violet, because that's the complement, this is a very light color. I don't want to go too dark or solid, but I'm going to take that violet and I'm going to place it on top, right where it overlaps. And then I'm going to pull the violet back. As I pull it across and away from that overlapping branch, I'm going to get it to fade on the second layer. Now again, just like I did on the color pencil, I'm actually going to sandwich another layer or put another layer of the original color back on top. That is not always necessary, but it is a way to blend in that color more so it looks like a dark version rather than just a layer of, in this case, violet on top. So the other thing that we need to talk about is how to add shadows to make it appear as if objects are three-dimensional. So I added a shadow here to create overlap. Now I'm going to make a shadow that looks three-dimensional. So if I think of a branch is curved. It's like a cylinder. So I'm going to pick one side of this branch that would have the shadow. Again, I'm using the complementary color. In this case is blue. And I'm going to put that on the underneath side of the branch. And then I'm going to fade up. Again, I'm using this really light touch. I'm going to sandwich in, or I'm going to bury that blue with a little bit of that brown and make it blend in or mix in with that complementary color, which is the blue. If there's too much blue left there for me, I'm just going to add more layers of this brown. So a light layer of blue on this orange or brownish branch, and that creates a shadow to make it look three-dimensional. So that I've created the curve on that side. The branch also curves on this side, but just not as much or as dark. So one of the things with your shadows is you're going to make mixtures with complementary colors to create more of an appearance of 3D rather than just flat.